Okay, so this should be live. Let me just double check. Okay, it seems like the video is live. As always, guys, if you do see this, let me know if the audio is working. The streaming seems to be healthy. Hi, Osvaldito. ¿Qué tal? ¿Todo bien? Alright, we're gonna start with this modeling tutorial. Thanks a lot for hanging out, guys. I'm gonna maximize this view, so I'm not gonna keep an eye on the chat. I believe that the audio should work alright. Just tell me if it is. Osvaldito Chiquitito, tell me if the audio is good. Hi, sir. Hi, Basharat. So I'm guessing the audio is okay, right? Just give me a yes so that I know that I can continue. Is the audio working, guys? I don't see anybody answering my question. Is the audio working, guys? Yeah, it is working. Okay, so I'm gonna maximize this. Basically today what we are going to do, we're going to render this simple model, which is the model of a tire. I want to break down the whole process of making this image, which is my Behance project. There we go. And I thought to start with the tire because it's one of the things that you guys have requested the most. So let's just get started and let's see how this comes out. Now, making a tire, it's actually really simple. I will start with a simple polygon. There we go, let me center it. And this polygon, I'm only going to have geometry in one direction. Gonna kind of squeeze this down. I'm gonna have a lower tessellation, something like maybe something like this, a little bit more maybe. Now, for the purpose of this tutorial, I'm not going to go into too much details on how the pattern of a tire looks like. Here I just give you an input on how to make it, and then you can use this to create your own pattern. You can get very creative, you can do very cool stuff. So I'm just gonna convert this polygon by hitting the letter C. I'm gonna go into polygon selection, select all polygons with Ctrl A, and then I'm gonna say MW, and I'm gonna make sure to uncheck preserve groups. So to create some sort of like inset, and then MT for the extrusion. And as you can see, we start to get some tessellation. This is really, really good. This is what I'm looking for. Now, as I said, here you can start creating some sort of a pattern. The way I'm going to do it, it's going to be very simple. I'm gonna switch to point selection, and I'm going each set of points, I'm going to offset it of 1 unit, and I'm going to create some sort of like aggressive looking pattern. Maybe one thing that I'm going to do, I'm going to make the one on the side a little bit thinner. So maybe something like this, and maybe a little bit larger. And you will see why in a second. Okay, good. So now let's test this model and let's see what happens if I smooth it. So to smooth it, I'm just gonna take one of these subdivision surfaces, make the plane a child, and as you can see, we get this shape. Now this shape is not what we're looking for. We need to harden the edges of this shape. So let's do that very quickly. In order to do that, you could make a loop cut through each single of these elements, but I know that this is very time consuming. So by doing KK for a knife and unchecking visible only here, there you go. If you cannot access it, make sure that you are in one of these 3 sub-modeling points. Make it uncheck visible only so that you can make a cut through the entire thing. Click Shift to make a straight cut. And as you can see, now this is a little bit harder. We'll do the same for the base of this geometry. So I'm gonna start somewhere around here. So the base, it's now also a little bit harder. And then I'm gonna say KL for some loop cuts. And I'm just gonna cut, clicking Shift so that it's gonna stay into incremental mode. I'm just gonna cut some loops in order to strengthen a little bit the shape of this geometry. There we go. So now we have some sort of like resemblance to a pattern of a tire. Good. So one other thing that I want to do, I want to add maybe another couple of cuts through this piece of geometry because I want to bend it a little bit, and I'll show you how to do that in a second. But for now, since I've tested the geometry and it looks like it's working, I'm gonna get it out of this subdivision surface. And one way to bend this geometry is to put a bend modifier inside, underneath the geometry itself. Now what this bend modifier does, it allows you to bend the geometry as it says, you know? There you go. Now it's not working the way we want it because we need to orient it in the way that it's supposed to. And we need to make it basically, the bounding box needs to fit the shape that we want. In this case, I can simply click on Fit to Parent. At the moment, the shape it's very long because I just want to bend this little part. So one thing that I can do, I can take the bend modifier, move it towards this edge, and I can make it smaller so that it only influences that area. Let's do that. And as you can see, this is just influencing that area. Maybe it needs to be a little bit stronger. There we go. Maybe a little bit more. And I'm going to work with a specific angle. So say, let me move this a little bit further so that the curvature happens there. Say 50 degrees. Because in order for me to make this geometry straight, what I need to do, I need to select the geometry. If the strength is 50 degrees, then I'll have to rotate the geometry something like -25, which is the half. Let me see if that works. Oh, no, maybe it's -50 then. Yeah, of course, because it needs to 0. There you go. Basic mathematics. Good. So now, once I get this effect here, all I'm going to do is right-click on the plane with the bend modifier and say current state object. Now I can delete this bend modifier. One problem that you see is that my gizmo is up there and it's rotated to -50 degrees. So we will have to reset this. In order for me to do that, I'm going to activate the axis mode. Then I'm gonna say center this to the object and reset the rotation. Now I can click this element again and I can center my geometry back to the 0 point. S to zoom the object again. There we go, great. So now what I need to do, I need to build the sidewall of this tire. That's a very simple operation. I'm just gonna click it and go into front view. With the E key and control, I can simply start to extrude the geometry. So to create the sidewall of the tire. This is something that might require a little bit of tweaking. W to change the orientation to world. There we go. And for now, this will work. We might have to be a little bit more careful with the modeling, but that's okay. Great, so now we have one side of the tire. To make the other side, all I have to do is select all the polygons with Control A, MH for the mirror shortcut, and then I'm gonna snap the mirror. When you see that the line becomes violet or purple, it means that it's, god damn it, I missed it. It's fine, don't worry. I can take these points and I can simply scale them down to the 0. I can right click and say optimize, and now in theory these points are welded together. Let's take a look. Yes, perfect. So now I have the thread of my tire. As far as I'm concerned, this thread looks really small, or really thin actually. So I'm just gonna center this to the 0, and I'm gonna center my model to the 0 as well. And I'm gonna scale it a little bit, say 200%. And just to be sure, I'm gonna drop it inside the subdivision surface just to double check and see how it looks. There we go. So I wanna say it's okay. You know, it could be a little bit better, but it's okay. Maybe one of the things that we should fix is the way this curve here it's happening. I don't know why that is. Maybe there might be a double extrusion. Yes, as I was suspecting. So use Z to kind of delete that element. Same thing here. There is some weird geometry happening there. Let me switch this off. So use Z. Let me switch to point mode. What is happening here? So there is some sort of like overlapping geometry. Let's take another look. Use Z. Okay, you know what? Let me just take this whole thing. I'm gonna delete it, B, and I'm going to bridge this surface to this surface. I'll do the same there. Just select these points. B to bridge them. And then I'm gonna say KL to kind of add a subdivision. Now it might have to be scaled out a little bit just to make sure that there is a curvature there. There we go, that will do. Let's make sure that all the faces are looking in the right direction. Perfect. Good. So now let's start to decorate our tire. It's a competition tire, so it's pretty flat. I like that. Now the curvature seems to be alright. I'm going to deactivate the subdivision surface. And I'm going to drop a cloner. In this cloner, I'm going to make the plane a child. The plane at the moment is duplicating vertically. We don't want that. We want the plane to duplicate in this direction. This direction is the Z one, so let's see what happens. Okay, it's going in the other direction. It's fine. We can simply do it like this. Now, this will take a little bit of fiddling with the sides. I would recommend to change the display mode so that you can have an idea how this is going to look like. So let's try with 79. 79 is obviously too much, so let's try with 78.4, 78.6. It's getting closer. 0.7. I would say 6.5 maybe. 6.8. God, 6, 7. That's almost perfect. Okay, we'll leave it like this because then we're gonna use the well tool and we're gonna give it a tolerance, and then all the points will be stitched together. Now I'm gonna make, say, I don't know, maybe 60, 70 copies. Let's take a look. That looks about right. Good. So now I'm gonna hit the C letter on the cloner. Select all the children. So select, where is it? Select children. Deselect the cloner, right click, connect objects, delete. So now the objects are connected, but I need to go into point mode. You see, because the points are still not stitched together. And I have to say right click, optimize, and this in theory should stitch all the points together. Perfect. Now I'm going to drop this whole thing into a bend modifier. Sorry, I'll make the bend a child of this geometry. Let's call it tire to keep things organized. I'll get rid of this cloner. Now the bend, again, as I did before, fit to parent. I know that the orientation of the bend is wrong, so I'll have to basically turn it minus 90 degrees, and then I'll have to say again fit to parent. Whoops, that's still wrong. 90 degrees this way, fit to parent, and this time I'm going to say keep the y-axis length the same. I'll make this slightly bigger so that the geometry is for sure within the bounding box. And I'm going to bend this 300 and a little bit more than 360 degrees. Let's see. So 362.5 maybe. That's way too much. Maybe 0.2. Whoops. 362.2. Maybe 0.3. Maybe 0.25. Yes, that's good enough. Because now what I'm going to do, right click, current state to object, this I can get rid of. And here I can simply say point mode, right click, optimize, and now I'll have to change maybe the tolerance of my optimize. Let's take a look. I'm gonna make this 0.5, say OK, and now the points are welded. There we go. Good, so now we have our tire. Let's drop it inside the subdivision surface. And that's it. That looks good enough to me. So competition tire, it's the best competition tire in the world. The sidewalls might not be long enough, but that's okay. We can simply say edge mode, UL. We're gonna select these loops. And then we can say empty. We can simply extrude this a little bit. Maybe, let's see in the section what it's happening. Display lines. You cannot really tell. I would say it's good enough. There we go. So now it's time to texture this and to render it. Now, as far as I'm concerned, I like to keep things simple. I'm gonna center the geometry again, and I'm gonna actually, in this case, I'm gonna make the subdivision surface centered to the geometry as well to keep a little bit of order. Make the tire a child again, and then I'm gonna 0 the position of this tire. Let me check the sides. As you can see, the sides, it's huge. It's 8 meters. We know that this needs to be maybe 10%. So I'm just gonna go into less than 10% because now it's a 80 centimeters wheel. So let's make it another maybe 50%, 42 centimeters wheel. I guess it's about right. So let's make a, first of all, let's switch to Corona. I've already tested this this tutorial, so I've already used Corona, but you know, we can simply say, let's start with a new render settings so that I start new. Let's switch to Corona so that you see my process from 0. This one I can simply remove it. So now I have Corona. Let's create a brand new material, shader, Corona material. I'm gonna go into the diffuse and I'm going to select a, in this case I can just go with an image, it's okay. I'm gonna go inside my Fiat 127, let's see where I put it. 127, 12, there it is. Texture. By the way, these textures are available on my Behance. You can download the whole project. That's my tire. I don't want to save the project there. There we go. I'm gonna make a reflection using the same exact map. And I'm gonna blend this with, say, 20-25% of white. And I'm going to make this reflection, sorry, I want to blend this with 25%. You do it in the mix strength. And I want to lower the glossiness to something like 70% maybe. We'll have to test it. And also I want to give it a little bit of a bump texture because you'll see it in a minute if I drop this material onto my tire. Let's change the way this texture. So I'm gonna change this from UV mapping to flat. Let me see how this is looking. Okay, so I'll have to rotate it 90 degrees. There you go. I'm gonna right click and say fit to object. Now you don't see it because of the way I made the texture myself. There you go. Good. Let me change the preview. So preview something like 2K. There you go. So now you see how this is supposed to be. Great. Now you probably notice, you know, the texture, since it's textured like this, like flat, you will see it also inside the wheel. It doesn't really matter to me because you're not gonna see that part, at least in the rendering. There are ways that you can stop this from happening. We're not gonna go into this right now. I wanna keep it simple and lazy, and you gotta be a little bit lazy yourself in order to achieve more with less. Now I say it, don't quote me because otherwise people are going to want to kill me. And I'm going to create a Corona light. I'm gonna turn this Corona light in front of my tire, move it a little bit away, scale it up, can move it a little bit further away. There you go. I'm gonna say Corona, the camera, where is it? Camera. I'm gonna look through the camera. The Corona light, I'm going to disable the visible directly. I'm going to lower the intensity to something like 10. And I'm gonna do a quick test render. Okay, good. The material looks kind of okay. Maybe one thing that I wanna do, I wanna change the background of my scene. So in order for me to do that, I've created a basic Corona material. It's simply a basic material. Let's do that. Corona new material. That's what I did. you go into the scene environment, say override C for the environment, and just drop this material in there. So now when you render, the environment will be of the color of that material, and you're gonna be able to see a little bit more what is happening here, okay? There is something weird happening. Let me take a look. Something seems to be off with the geometry. I don't really know what. Oh, okay, maybe I'm looking at the geometry in the wrong direction, but that's okay. You get the gist. Maybe the geometry needs to be fixed somewhere. Maybe, you know, the pattern that I've created down here doesn't really make a lot of sense. It should have had a little cusp or something. I don't know. But this, in the essence, is the way you make the tire. Now, if I get a little bit closer to the tire and you start to see the details, one thing that you will want to have is maybe a little bit of texture going over the tire. Because you see, at the moment, the geometry is very flat. So one thing that we can do, we can take this material and we can say that we want to have a bump. There it is. And the bump, we want to use a... I've prepared a texture before, but you know, you can use any kind of texture to create sort of like irregularities. Important thing is that you keep these irregularities very, very low. I would say maybe 2%, it's more than enough. Let's test render it. So you start to add a little bit of a, you see, irregularities to the material itself. Don't worry too much about, you know, the fact that this is not textured properly. Actually, if I were to make this for a final render, one thing that I would do, I will make two materials, one for the side and one for the tire itself, and then I would just select these polygons and apply this one only to the sidewall. But that's okay. This shows us, you know, how this is done. So to me, it's good enough. Now, next week, one thing that I want to do is start to model the rim inside, using, of course, this as an example, because I think it's a very nice retro look, and I can show you how I made, you know, the array and all the rest. Maybe a little bonus next week will be to also show you how I put some of the dust on the tire itself. Anyway, I think this tutorial is over. It has been going on already for a too long. I mirror too soon. Oh, you mean the geometry? Yeah, it's true. You're right. Let me know if this is useful to you, if you need any more of these tutorials, if you like the way I make those tutorials. What do we call this? Yeah, tire tutorial. Okay, guys, thanks a lot for watching, and hopefully I'll see you next week. Oh, by the way, next week what I want to do is make a video about how to price images which are more than one image. So, you know, projects with multiple images, and I want to talk a little bit about that, because this is a question that you guys have asked us quite a bit, actually. And I tried to postpone this as much as I could, because I wanted to do it with a guest on the show. So, you know, but now I've collected enough information, so I think I'm gonna do this video by myself. Hi, Nicholas. Yes, I will teach you so much more. Just keep following me. Lots of love, and I'll see you next week. Bye.